Hello and welcome to another Kalene Storytime. It's a little late today, but it is definitely a longer of a chapter from Storming Amargosa by TS Hottle. And this one is actually a book 3. So this is our first, within a series story. Let me pull this part. The storm has arrived. For Davra Andraste, redemption comes as she accompanies the Resistance commander to confront the human warlord fighting against both sides. Sounds ominous. Very ominous. Dropping a little linkage. Alright, and we're just going to jump right in. As soon as I get back to the top of the page. Alright, Chapter 1. Davra Andraste wanted out of the village. The locals did not arrest her, as she feared, but living in the primitive remains of Eudoras came as a step down from life in the mine or camping on the march with suicide in her team. Where were they, anyway? Did they ever find that ship? Rumors spread from returning patrols. Something exploded off the western coast. Something big. It might have been the Bon Ki-moon. It might have been a Gelt weapon, or even a human one. Even more rumors suggested humans had set off the fusion blasts in Landstorp and Arcanum when the Gelt invaded. Why wouldn't they set off another if it weakened their conquerors? Ondostre? The man standing in the doorway to her metal hut leaned on a cane, the result of a bad life pod re-entry. In the time she had been here, his limp had gotten worse, not better. Broken hips did not mend well without modern medicine. Beyond the Gelt colony ships, none could be had on Amargosa. Lieutenant Tarak, she asked, what can I do for you? We have word from the Founder's mine, said Tarak. They want you to return. Davra rose to her feet and looked around for her boots. Am I under arrest? As far as I'm concerned, you got that ape to help you off the colony ship when it blew. He gave her a crooked grin. Then you got her to surrender to us. She almost seems happy to be here. Our late overlord was as benevolent a husband as he was a ruler. She found the boots beneath her makeshift cot. Actually, I had it better. I was merely a domesticated pet. Surprised they didn't try to lobotomize you. Oh, I'm sure someone would have thought of it eventually. She worked the left boot on, a leather thing lined with fur. So much for nanofiber boots. Those would have shrunk to her feet and formed to support her arches as needed. What about Patish? Tarak made a sour face. They want her, too. Interrogation, scientific study. We haven't been in the habit of taking Gelt prisoners. They've been returning the favor since their sovereign died. The other boot did not want to go on. A drawback to having clothing with no intelligence. Vivisection. We've been less kind to Gelt prisoners than they were to us. At least I had food and shelter. And your own little bed. I'm sure that thing was happy to let you... What did you say she called it? Make stinkies whenever you needed? Yeah, said Davra. I think I broke her of that habit when we escaped the transport. Finally, the boot went onto her foot. I also saw them strangle a woman with that collar device they gave us, so I'm not telling you they're benevolent by any stretch. We can kill her, said Tarak. Say it was an escape attempt. Surely Colonel Jovan won't hold that against you. Davra looked down at the dirt floor of her hut. I'm a deserter, Lieutenant. I disobeyed orders to take part in a mission I was not assigned to. Bringing back a prisoner as valuable as Lady Laura Patish will go a long way toward making up for that. She looked up again. Besides, she saved my life. I saved hers. That counts for something. Tarak nodded. Your call. I'll assign 2 of the more experienced troops to escort you. As far as I'm concerned, you're an escaped resistance fighter still on active duty. I'm assigning you to transport the prisoners to the Founder's mine. Once you're there, I can't help you. Davra smiled. That's more than enough. And she's not a bother. She's very curious about us, like a tourist. Tarak looked around him both outside and inside the hut. Hell of a vacation spot. I'd prefer tea in myself. And at one point, Davra realized, so did she. What a boring little planet, said Laurel Farad, standing in the observation deck of the liner. Below him, the planets the Gelt referred to as Seal spun, white clouds over blue water and brown and red land, like 100 other worlds in the realm. This one offered nothing new. It was sea-covered with a third to half its landmass exposed, no different from the throne world or the various prime worlds of the realm. As an astronomical body, Seal bored him. Lord Laurel, someone said in accented mother tongue. Faral turned to see a pale human with hair that looked, at least to his Gelt eyes, orange. Maybe it looked orange to humans. Who are you? The man held up his palm, its tattoo displaying some garish rune. I am God, if I could stop screwing this up. I am with Juno. The rune meant nothing to Farad. Neither did the name Juno. You should be in captivity. Didn't my cousin try to use you people for domestic pets? Your family's abuse of the settlers on Amargosa does not concern me, said the human. I am here as a representative of an entity which your family owes obligations. Farad closed his eyes and tried to remember all the connections his cousin and his uncle had made in seizing Sial and Hanar. I know nothing about this Juno or you. My uncle committed suicide rather than lose a challenge. My cousin managed to get himself killed. Along with your sovereign, if I'm not mistaken. So, I failed to see how any deal either of them made falls to me. It's bad enough this is a warrior-cased operation. I'm of the banking caste. And your cousin and uncle lost 2 of the planets we helped them procure. The human looked out at Sial. Magnificent. This one you've managed to hold on to. I can see why Mr. Clement selected it for our plans. Farad stared at the human. Your plans? In case you haven't noticed, Sial is now a Gelt possession. The human smiled. That's part of the plan. But be advised, the Laurel family, not merely your uncle and cousin, are bound by the obligations to Juno. We handed you Fari Ka, and you were outsmarted by one survivor and a rover. We handed you the world you now call Hanar, and you lost it to one of your stupid cultural quirks. That's 2 worlds. Juno needs 5 to achieve its goals. I'm not interested in your goals. I am now head of House Laurel. My only obligation is to hold this planet and develop it for the house. The human's smile became something more unsettling. Perhaps I did not make myself clear. Amargosa, as the humans call it, is critical to Juno's plans. Whether you hold it or the compact is irrelevant. You simply were a tool to remove Mars as an obstacle to our agenda. Farad looked the human up and down, his hand going to the hilt of his sword. He had no idea if this human knew how to fight. What's to stop me from simply having you shoved out the airlock? The human pressed his lips flat. Nothing. That's what I thought. Except that I'd make the suicide capsule embedded in your lower jaw explode and reduce you to a steaming mass of protoplasm before you could summon your guards. He turned and walked away. Farad watched the human. He moved with the same bearing as the late sovereign. I have a planet to subdue, Mr. Russell. I'll thank you to leave me to it. Russell gave him a smile that looked weird even for a human. Of course, Lord Laurel. Be advised, though, Colonel Cray is also still in play, and we may decide he is more useful than you for our project. Remember that before you think to betray us. The Gelt warrior swung his sword toward J.T. Austin's calf, a move that had proven his Achilles' heel for weeks now. J.T. found himself cartwheeling awkwardly while switching his sword from hand to hand. He still did not have the move down to do it smoothly, but at least he executed it. Returning to his feet, he found himself behind the warrior and swung at his back. The warrior froze with contact as the blade did not penetrate his armor. JT swung again at his knee, and the warrior toppled backward. Finally, JT's sword rested with its point on the warrior's chest. The warrior pulled off his helmet, revealing a gray face with a flattened nose and yellow eyes. Tattoos covered his bare scalp. His grin revealed a mouthful of canines that reminded JT of the lycanths back on Amargosa. "You fight dirty, human," he said in a rough voice, his humanic deliberately unpracticed, as though the warrior were trying to keep his accent on purpose. "I like that." He offered his hand for help getting up. "I yield." JT took the warrior's hand and pulled him to his feet. "I accept. Tell me, Bornag, why do you keep sparring with me?" That heavily fanged grin on Bornag's face widened. "The first citizen is, how do you humans say it? She's sweet on you. But our Mr. Colt is sweet on the first citizen. And since I am Colt's second..." "What, you're trying to kill me?" Bornag laughed as he sheathed his practice sword. "You misunderstand. Colt and I know the first citizen is fond of you, so honing you into a weapon pleases her." The grin became crooked. "And happy Gelt women taste better, even to humans such as Mr. Colt." "You do know we do not use our tongues for that," said JT, sheathing his own practice sword. He fell in step with Bornag as they strode across the practice grounds. "We use our..." "Save it," said Bornag. "I don't need a lesson in human anatomy. I know the Gelt method of kneeling is odd, but really, young Austin, you humans, most primate aliens, in fact, have a disgusting reproductive system." Now JT grinned. "Of course, if it didn't feel good, do you think 3/4 of the sapient species we know of could reproduce? Sex is gross. If it didn't feel so good, no one would do it. Survival of the species be damned." Bornag threw back his head and laughed. "The gods certainly have a warped sense of humor." A Tianese human clad in black stepped into their path. Aged more by experience than actual biology, she put a hand out and flattened it against JT's chest, forcing him to stop. "Did he take you down this time?" "No," said Bornag. "The boy won. Been feeding him raw meat, Suicide?" "Been making him do laps at the new stadium next to the First Citizens' residence. And when is Tishla going to have the street there paved? It's not like she doesn't have the nanoplascrete to do it." Bornag bellowed with laughter. "She thinks keeping a dirt road in front of her residence will keep the council humble. Though I don't know, Commander. Methinks our beloved First Citizen could do some well-earned arrogance. Look at what she's accomplished in one revolution." JT looked around and noticed the skyline was dotted with new buildings still growing from their nanocultures. From a rooftop, he knew he would see 10-story buildings stretching for at least 2 kilometers in any direction, and the finished ones were all occupied. A year ago, this had been wilderness. Amazing. Sorry, wrong character. To Suicide, he said, "So, when do I get to fly again?" "Do you think you can do it without crashing?" "I thought any landing you walked away from was a good landing." Suicide scowled. "Young one, we can fuse bone, regenerate a hip, seal cuts and put ice on your bruises. But shuttlecraft are expensive to replace, and even more expensive to repair. You've managed to cause both." He spread his hands. "What can I say? Go large or go home." "Toll Germanics is coming here. I'm sure he can arrange for you to go home." JT stopped, cold settling in the pit of his stomach. "Toll's coming here? Does Mother know I'm on Hanar?" "If he hasn't told your mother," said Suicide, "your father probably has. Relax. Legally, you're a resident of Amargosa, which makes you a citizen of Mars. Which makes me legally an adult, I get it, but you know both my parents can pull strings whenever they want." She stopped and gently grabbed JT's arm. "Look, your father's an admiral. I know him well. But I also know he won't force you into anything you don't want to do." JT's eye went toward the First Citizen's residence. "But if you swear fealty to her," said Suicide, forcing his attention back to her, "I will never forgive you. She likes you. She's grateful to you. But she knows you're still Lizzie's pet Earthman." A pang of sadness swept over JT as his hand automatically went to the bullet locket around his neck. "I think they would have liked each other." Suicide took a finger and lifted the locket from JT's hand. Make me a promise, Earthman. For you? Anything. You are certain to become a pilot, so ashes are probably out of the question. Give me something of yours to burn if I outlive you in the coming invasion. He felt a tear forming in his eye and looked away. Clearing his throat, he said, Absolutely. Marcus Littman looked out from his 49th story office and admired the rain-soaked skyline of Quantonesia. So many skyscrapers crammed into a few square kilometers in the middle of Victoria Harbor. He sipped his coffee, earth-grown of course, and closed his eyes. The aroma swept through his nose and took him back to the days when one could get Arabica bean coffee on every other corner, and the sky was not so crowded with space stations. When one looked up at the moon, no speckles of city light shone back. It had been a purer time, a simpler time, of if only that man had never hanging out with all your friends, I see. Littman nearly jumped out of his skin to see a silver-haired man, thin, who looked both very young and very old at the same time, and like Littman, he showed no signs of rejuvenation treatment. He just appeared ageless. How do you keep getting in here, Toll? Toll Germanicus grinned. A subsidiary of Desarius Interstellar built this tower. You didn't think I'd resist giving myself a back door to the seat of human authority, did you? You're not human. Actually, our friend claims you're not human. That you haven't been for a long, long time. Littman put down his coffee and crossed the room to a small bar. There, he poured himself 3 fingers of Irish whiskey. Drink? Oh, that's right. You don't drink, Toll. What a shame that you miss it. Germanicus shoved his hands in his pockets. No more than I miss that arrogant attitude of yours. But you see, Marcus, or do I call you Jean? Let's go with Jean. You see, Jean, I grew out of that same attitude you have when I was much, much younger, before you and I even met. Littman took a swallow of his whiskey and let it burn. The process that kept him ageless never allowed his esophagus to adapt to the whiskey's bite, but he didn't care. What do you want, Toll? Germanicus took a seat in the visitor's chair and spun it, a move that sent a chill down Littman's spine. The older man laced his fingers behind his head. Comfy. I have one like this at Desarius Interstellar. Mine is an original, of course. So hard to find IKEA furniture that isn't faked these days. Toll. Germanicus sighed. Fine. I'm here to give you an out. An out? Amargosa is about to fall. Does it matter? Look at this office. Germanicus looked at the office. Yes, your Deputy Security General. And when your scheme finally pushes your friend Ibn Aziz into this ill-defined role of president, you'll be Secretary General. But you'll still have lost. It was Littman's turn to smile. So you admit it's a competition? I'm humoring you. For me, and for a lot of other people along the way, it's a mission to push humanity to its next level. He stood. As he did, he seemed to grow in size and stature, with as little bloodshed as possible. Littman swallowed the rest of his drink. You have to break a few eggs to make omelets. Or did you forget Ulan Uld? The smile on Germanicus's face looked demonic. And how many died by my hand since that mistake? Let's look at your schemes. All those people on Fariga, Galid, Amargosa. I've done my best to move beyond violence, Jean. Don't call me that. At the same time, I've spent the better part of 4 centuries cleaning up after you. Germanicus moved over to the bar and poured himself a drink from a bottle of Cabo Wabo, then looked at the bottle thoughtfully. I remember when Sammy Hagar sold this brand. Made himself a fortune only a few could dream of. Too bad the agave's grown on Bonaparte now. You'd be mortified. Littman watched as Germanicus drank the tequila straight. He almost dropped the glass when the older man tossed it to him. How? Here's the deal, said Germanicus. Amargosa will soon be in the hands of humans again. Or Maybe humans and Gelt. That young Gelt lady on Galede makes a persuasive case that the compact is irrelevant. I'm sleeping with your daughter. Littman waited for the shock to register on Germanicus's face. I know. You're not angry? Of course I'm angry, but Jean. Marcus. Whatever. We are both over 500 years old. Surely, you've learned to become very zen about things you can't control. Besides, who am I to complain? Tessa's a grown woman. If she wants to use you as her plaything, what is it to me? She's not your real daughter, you know. Germanicus shrugged. She knows that, and I know that. But her real father is an idiot. There's even a Wikipedia Britannica article on the subject. Anyway, what will you do when she learns you're the one who trapped her son on Amargosa when the Gelt invaded? You'd better pray that boy is still alive. A knowing smile crossed his lips. Or not on Hanar. And I'd hate to see what happens when she finds out what you've done. You know the consequences of revealing who I am. I expose you, too. Germanicus spread his hands. You're too young to remember mutually assured destruction. So are you. Look around you, Stephen. The name did not have the effect Littman hoped, as Germanicus did not react. You built the compact, and I am now a heartbeat away from controlling it. Are you? You built Desarius Interstellar, and I am now sleeping with its CEO. Perhaps I'll marry her. Maybe I'll conceive her eventual heir since her children seem to have no interest in the company. I believe Tessa turned off fertility after her daughter was born. My point is everything you've built, I now control. Germanicus rolled his eyes, making Littman wonder if the response was a reflex or a programmed reaction. Marcus, you are doing exactly as I did in Ulan Uld. Granted, you have followers, but you get to walk around in the flesh and build your little cult. I did everything myself back then with machines. The difference is I'm no longer willing to sacrifice lives for my goal. Haven't been for years. Besides, my goal is salvation. Yours is my destruction. Littman leaned against his desk and watched the lightning flash outside. I'll make you a deal, Toll. Another? How many have you lost so far? This is for all the marbles. Go ahead. I'm listening. If Amargosa falls, I'll dissolve Juno. No questions asked. I simply end it. My followers will do as I say. Oh, sorry. Switch those voices. I just accidentally switched them. Germanicus closed his eyes and shook his head. I've heard that before. And if you somehow manage to hold on to Amargosa, either it remains in Gelt hands, or your little friend becomes its official warlord. What's in it for you? You delete yourself from every compact in Desarius interstellar system, disappear from humanity, and, hopefully, history. You cease to exist. Germanicus laughed. Oh, I don't think I'd completely disappear, but I might be persuaded to retire. Then retire. Littman balled his fists at his sides. As long as you're gone. Be careful what you wish for, Marcus. You might get it. Do we have a bet? Germanicus held out his hand. Deal. Littman took the offered hand. It was surprisingly warm and dry with a strong grip. The feel unsettled him. Like the god and devil playing with Job's life. Again, Germanicus rolled his eyes. Jean, you always had an overinflated sense of your own importance. I'm no more a god than you are. We're just very well placed to do what we do. But in this analogy, we are kind of like God and the devil, only... He vanished, but his voice remained. You're the devil. You always have been. Littman stared down at the carpet where Germanicus had stood only a moment before. The puddle that remained smelled of tequila. Stay frosty, said Germanicus. In a universe without end, my friend. And scene. And that was Book 3, Storming Amargosa by TS Hottle. Oh, that was a good one, man. So many voices. Sometimes it can be hard to switch between, but I think I did pretty good. And yeah, so next week there will not be a story time. I am terribly sorry. I have to take a week off to catch up on different other works. But the following week, we will have Tala Ridge Alpha by Lynn Nodima. When two teenaged wolf shifter alphas square off. Who survives? Alrighty. Thank you so much for watching and listening. And I will see you next time for more Kalene Storytime. Peace out.